Hi guys, welcome back to Read Aloud. I have chapter 7 of Blood on the River. Such factions here we had as commonly attend such voyages, that a pair of gallows was made, but Captain Smith, for whom they were intended, could not be persuaded to use them. Captain John Smith wrote that in his journal, The True Travels, Adventures, and Observations of Captain John Smith. So these quotations at the beginning of each chapter are actually primary historical resources. So they were written by actual people experiencing these events throughout history, and then the author bases the events in the chapter off of those quotes. The next morning dawns clear and warm. Captain Smith is back in chains, and the gallows sits ready. Reverend Hunt calls us together for Sunday services. We meet, gathered around the tree where Captain Smith is chained so that he can join us. Reverend Hunt's sermon goes on for hours. I think maybe he will not stop until every single one of us has promised never to sin again. He says to tell a lie is a sin, and that any man who lies for his own gain and does not repent will spend eternity in the agony of hell's flames. He looks right at Master Wingfield and Captain Ratcliffe, delivering his sermon with passion. I see Master Wingfield squirm. Captain Ratcliffe sets his jaw and stares straight ahead. Captain Newport looks at the two of them and shakes his head. I send up a prayer that Reverend Hunt's sermon will save Captain Smith from his hanging. After services, I bring Captain Smith some food. I wonder if it will be his last meal. Yet he is calm. I've been a prisoner before, and I escaped before, he says. When I was a soldier, fighting the Turks of the Ottoman Empire, I was captured and made a slave. They shaved my head, put an iron ring around my neck, and brought me to auction to be sold like a beast. James and Richard are nearby, and they come closer to listen. The other slaves told me it was useless to try to escape. Impossible, they said. But one day, we were working in the fields. I was threshing wheat with a threshing bat. My master rode up on horseback with his whip. He cracked the whip, brought it down on my naked back, lashed my skin open. I was enraged. I took my threshing bat in both hands and swung. He swings his arms as if knocking the cruel master from his horse once again. Down he came, and before he could get his footing, I cracked the bat over his head, and then I beat him with the stub until there's no life left in him. No wonder Captain Smith is unafraid of these pale, weak gentlemen and their threats. If he wants to, he'll kill them with his bare hands. Then I shucked off my slave rags, put on my master's clothes, and rode off on his horse to my freedom. Captain Smith finishes his story. The three of us boys are silent. I admire his courage, and I admire the way he talks back to the gentlemen as if they have no right to lord it over him. I've never known another commoner who had the nerve to do that. Reverend Hunt comes marching up, a ring of keys dangling. He takes the keys to the clamps on Captain Smith's ankles. I've convinced them that without you as a translator, we will all perish in Virginia, he says as the clamps open and fall away. Thank you, Reverend, Captain Smith says, rubbing his ankles. I owe you a favor. Reverend Hunt gives him a stern look. This is the favor I want, then? I want you to at least act as though you have the proper respect for these gentlemen. If you insult them and anger them again, they may choose their pride over their survival in the New World. Captain Smith nods, and I wonder if he really does plan to be polite to the exalted gentleman from here on in. He's at least as stubborn as I am, so I know it will be hard for him to change. That afternoon the sound of chopping wood rings out over the rumbling of the waves. The gallows is cut up and thrown on the fire, where it nicely roasts our fish for supper. After 6 days on Nevis, I am fatter. The birds are so tame we pluck them out of the bushes with our hands. The sea is teeming with fish, and the trees are full of fruit. The only natives on the island are afraid of us, and they stay well hidden. I'm also cleaner. I have gone twice to the hot pools in the forest to bathe. But now, Captain Newport says, it's time to leave. We pack up the tents and the cookpots, barrels we have filled with fresh water, meat and fish we've dried for the rest of our voyage, and crates full of pineapples, mangoes, plantains, coconuts, and wild bird eggs. We sail past the Spanish islands of Vieques and Puerto Rico. We stop on the island of Mona just long enough to get fresh water and for a group of gentlemen to go hunting. They leave in the morning, taking a few soldiers with them for protection from the natives. They dress as if they are going pheasant hunting on a cool English morning, in silk doublets, velvet breeches, stockings, shoes, and felt hats, with their powder flasks hanging at their sides. The group returns in the evening, exhausted and faint, carrying what the expedition has killed: 2 boars, several iguanas, and the gentleman Edward Brooks. They say Brooks's fat melted inside his body in the extreme heat. Captain Smith has a few choice words to say about gentlemen who are too ignorant to know they should carry enough water on a 6-mile hike in the tropics, and too ignorant to take off their extra clothing when they get hot. But this time he is wise enough not to utter these words where any of the gentlemen can hear him. I did not know Edward Brooks well. He was a passenger on one of the other ships. Still, it is strange to see his pale, waxy skin and his limbs stiff with death. They dig a shallow grave for Master Brooks, and we sail away, leaving him there on Mona. I have dreams that night that the cannibals find his body, dig him up, and eat him. I awake in a cold sweat. I try to calm down, reminding myself that this could not possibly happen. No one digs up a grave for food.